Well, welcome to another Surface and Panel podcast. I am super excited to have the founder of Allmoxy here, Mr. Brady Lewis. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Well, I'll tell you, just right from go, I'm just going to dive right into it because
Sure.
one of my pet peeves are companies that proclaim to try to make things simple and then dealing with them is insanely complicated. So when I was doing background, in preparation for this, obviously the first thing everybody does is they Google and they go to the website, and your whole proclamation is trying to make things smarter and easier and faster and smarter, and so I was just kind of holding my breath and biting my tongue in advance of like clicking on the website and just going, oh my god, this is going to be another super techy complicated diatribe that goes on 8,000 pages, but I'm not going to be able to get the most basic information that I want, right? Because that's the norm, right?
Yeah.
And holy cow, your website just I mean, right? If I'm interested in finding out who you are, what you do, how you do it, and how much it's going to cost me, boom, it's right there. I love it.
That's such good feedback, and I'm so glad to hear it.
Yeah, no. So I'm all about walking the walk, right? Like these days,
These
everybody
have
can
to be
talk the talk.
so simple and just easy to get to.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I've asked my teenage daughter, okay, and she barely knows what I do for a living. And I just asked her, like, get on here. Do you know what I do now? Do you know what this is? What are you
Right,
missing? Who's my
right.
customer? And she has to be able to tell me. And
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's a good case study. I've got a 3-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I've tried several times to describe, but both of them are convinced that yeah, like I'm a spy for the government, and I just do super secret like 007 stuff. So
that's okay.
I,
Keep
I actually,
that.
I actually like that brand a little bit better than reality. So I think I'm just going to keep it going.
That's awesome. I
So,
love that.
so tell me, so first, like, how'd you come? What's the company name? Like, what's that all about?
Allmoxy. So it was largely based on what I wanted to be able to get the domain name.
Okay.
So I had to have a clean, I wanted a couple syllables. I wanted to be simple. I didn't care if people knew what it meant or not. And
Right.
so Mox, I just started, going through the thesaurus, and I thought, okay, what's our company about? Like, who are we? And so Moxie, I found this word called Moxie, and it's
Yep.
kind of an older word. They used to
It
use it
is.
in like showbiz, like
Right.
it was spelled with IE though. So Moxie, and I knew early on, like, because we came out with this in like what 2008, and I knew we were ahead of our time. Like we were way too early back then. So I knew that people were going to see this and either get it or just not understand it at all. So that's
Right.
kind of what the word moxie encapsulates. Is like you get it, you have that like X factor, like you either
Right.
understand it or you don't.
Right.
So early on, that was more relevant than it is now. And then yeah, Mox. So I thought
So
putting a Y on it,
you're all Moxie.
yeah, and I liked how a logo with a Y looked better than an IE, and it kind of felt more masculine. So we put the Y
I
on, we put the
I
all in
love it.
front. Domain was available, and we were born.
No, I dig it. That is a great story. It is a great honest story because I mean, so many companies, right? Like I mean, it's funny when you read business books or you just been around a long time. You have a lot of these conversations. You go, all right, tell me the truth. Like, how'd you come up with the name Google? Like, seriously, Google?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and there's a ton of those stories for every Google where now it's a household global name. There's a million other stories where somebody came up with a name and like they got as far as making business cards and it never went further, but it looked really cool on a business card.
And,
But
and to be honest, circa 2012, 2000, I don't know, 11, when we were first starting out, I hated the name because anytime I would call, I'd say, this is, Brady from Allmoxy. And they would never, they'd Allmox, and they would
how do
never
you
repeat
spell
it
that?
right.
Yeah,
I had
right.
to spell it, ALLMOX. So I'm like, let's just come up with a name that's like more simple.
Yeah.
I don't have to spell it every time.
Right.
And I built a spreadsheet and we went through iterations of different names and nothing just felt right. So we kept it, and I wouldn't change it now, but
No, yeah, yeah. No, I love it. I love it. I mean, it's a case in trust in your gut and perseverance. So,
yeah.
I mean, so you've come a long way since the thesaurus. For anybody that's been living under a rock, tell us about your company and what you do.
Yeah, so we built. Okay, so I grew up in a cabinet shop, a custom manufacturing plant. We At the time all we did was doors, so solid wood doors. So I
Right.
grew up in that, sanding doors my whole life as a kid. Um, Hated it. Just I would sit and dream of how to automate things and fire myself. That was always the thing on my mind, is how do I not have to do this for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
So, and that mentality stuck with me.
What'd your dad think about that? How many discussions you have with
Oh,
dad about trying to put yourself out of business?
we fought constantly,
Yeah.
and because and rightly so, he saw it as, well, he doesn't like this business and he's, attacking what I'm trying to instill in him, this work ethic.
Right.
But in my mind, I was thinking, how can we work smarter? You
Yeah.
know, how can we make more money? How can I help my dad? Right.
Right. Not work
But
as hard, but work smarter.
yeah. So we
Yeah.
fought a lot.
You damn rebellious kids.
Yeah. 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 Can't you appreciate this opportunity that I'm letting you walk into?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, some of that is true. As a teenager, you don't understand those things.
Yeah. 100%.
But then, as an adult, I saw the value. I saw, okay, this is a company that's got a lot of potential. No, I don't want to sand doors my whole life, but there's more here. So I did, and he started me at the very bottom. I mean, I literally started as an adult, the same job that I had as a kid, sanding doors.
Okay.
And I'm grateful for that, because I had to learn everything all the way up.
Right.
So I would just, see the next process over, and I'd say, okay, how can I make that more efficient? Do
Right.
some things and move on. And after a few years, I had somewhat streamlined the shop and was in the office and starting to look at our systems in the office. And, we were basically running our whole operation off an Excel sheet that a neighbor had coded. So I just went to work on that, because that was the next, weak link in the chain,
Right.
and started coding Excel.
What'd your dad think about all this along the way? Right. Because here you are, and you keep, tinkering with things and screwing with things that, I mean, have stood the test of time so far.
Yeah. So as long as it was in the shop, it was acceptable, because in my dad's eyes, as long as you're, balls to the wall, working, sweating,
Right.
that's legitimate work. But as
If
soon
you're
as it,
covered in sawdust, it's all right.
yes, as soon as I went into the office, and
You're
now
trying
I'm
to
a,
escape the sawdust.
and now I'm a cush office worker, and I'm lazy and whatever else.
Right.
And that was just instilled upon him. He grew up in a farming community, and
You lead from the front and by example.
yeah. So as soon as I went in the office, even though that was where I needed to be, we had a lot of discussions. Get your ass out on the floor and get working.
Right.
Like, Dad, I am
This
working.
is work. Yeah.
This is where the
Yeah.
next work needs to happen.
Right.
So
Right.
there were a lot of fights there. But he did eventually see it, little by little.
Yeah.
I would make improvements, and I'd say, "Okay, Dad, now I
Look at
just
the
saved
bottom
you an
line.
hour a day." And he
Right.
started to see it. So it took him a
Right.
while, but he got it.
So you transition from Excel spreadsheets to something a little bit more dynamic.
Yeah, so we went from Excel to what's it even called? I forget now. Oh, Access, Microsoft Access.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very advanced.
Yeah. I took a little community college class learning how to do Access.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and went to that, and then quickly saw, that wasn't. I mean, that was better than what we had, but
Right,
then I caught cloud computing. I caught that vision soon after, and saw that okay, everything needs to be on the web because everything's going to be there in the future.
right,
So, and I didn't know how to. I wasn't a developer back then. I knew Access, I knew Excel, but I
right.
didn't have time to develop it. So we found a developer to start building what is the first version of Allmoxy.
Really? So you put your life in the hands of a kid that sits behind a computer all day who
Yeah,
who said he could develop your vision.
yeah, and I mean naively, I had never run a software company, which is what we were getting into.
So
I
so
mean,
so did you get lucky, or did you learn the hard lessons that most people that go down that road are of, wow, this guy really has no idea what I'm talking about, and it just cost me a lot of money.
both. So he got us enough of a product to where I could show my dad the value, and I could show our customers, a basic product,
Right.
and kind of the hunger was there to keep going. But
Yeah.
also he took off to on this sabbatical in he was in Prague, and I mean just backpacking across Europe. Couldn't get a hold of him. We had fires happening. It was
Right.
a bad deal.
Yeah.
So I
I
learned I learned some early lessons there. Yeah.
and your dad's finger was shaking of,
I
see
told
if
you.
see if this kid was back there covered in sawdust, you wouldn't have this problem.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so we did learn some hard lessons, and I mean that's just how we operate. We just jump into stuff and learn the hard way. Like
So
that.
you're not afraid of making mistakes.
No, no, we embrace mistakes. We try to fail fast. We try to hit our head on the cabinet first, because then
Right.
then you learn what you need to do to move forward.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and I mean, my dad's always, brought us up to think that way. Just jump in, make mistakes, and go for it.
Yeah, I love it. So now fast forward to today, I mean, where do you stand? I mean, brag about yourself a little bit.
That's impossible, but I am proud of our team and what we've built. Um, you know, today we with COVID especially, the timing has just finally, we finally feel like we're hitting our stride.
Yeah.
We had a lot of years there where we were trying to educate the industry. I mean, and that feels weird even saying, but just trying to show people that hey, cloud is coming. There's these new technologies where business is going to be operating like this in the future.
Right.
And for years, it was just real slow growth. I mean, there were a few early adopters that saw it,
Yeah.
and really jumped on it. But it was a slow go, and
Well,
now,
this industry as a whole, I mean, I love this industry. We serve multiple industries, but I mean, building materials is my favorite. And I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you, but one of the criticisms, but it's one of the things that I love most, and we were talking offline a little bit before about our wives' dreams versus our dreams, and my wife's dream is to live a little bit closer to the grocery store, and rightly so because she's got to go there quite a bit, and my dream is 10,000 acres in the middle of Wyoming.
yeah, yeah,
And that's a good analogy for also why I love this industry is, you know, they they're the 10,000 acres in the middle of Wyoming guys, I mean,
yeah,
we still get a lot of information that's sent to us via fax. I still laugh every time I kind of type in somebody's email and it has a domain of AOL.com. And I'm like, wow, they're still in business. Like, wow, and all I hear in the background of my head is, that little dial up,
dial up.
sign in tone, and but I love that about this industry. But you make a great point, that sometimes there's just tipping point events
Yeah,
that force widespread change and
Right.
adoption of new things. And it is amazing that, a couple of those guys that routinely sent over stuff and insisted on fax, send me my invoice via fax. It's like, oh my God, I don't have a fax machine.
Yeah.
But the other day I got a just a random video call from him. I thought he must be butt dialing like FaceTime on his phone or something. And sure enough, he was calling me via FaceTime on his phone. He's just like, this is the greatest thing. My grandchildren told me about this, and now I see them every day, and it's like fantastic. And my heart just swelled. Like I almost got teary. Just like, man, this guy, it's like he was so excited, like he discovered a pot of gold in this technology that I've been kind of jabbing him every time, like, dude, seriously, fax machine, you want me to send it via fax? Okay, I'll send it via fax again. But you know what? There's this thing called email. You're gonna love it if you tried it.
Yeah.
And so
And you're hitting on, um, we don't talk about this as much as I'd like to, but you're hitting on something that Allmoxy is really built on, and that is, and it's not just about Allmoxy. I mean, we could just talk about technology broadly, and that is that when a technology exists that can free you up from having to do something mundane and something that just eats your time, then you can use that time for things that matter. So, the grandson example is a perfect example, you know? And for me, when I was little, I'd watch my dad, just stress would just eat him alive every morning. And he literally would go in the bathroom and throw up a lot of times
right.
before work.
Yep.
And so within me, it's like, if you can use a technology to take care of those things, then you can free humans up to do things that only humans can do. Only humans can connect with each other like we do. Only humans can, serve each other and build each other, and that's what really is what it has to all be about. So for me, I get excited when I see people. I mean, yeah, I want them to sign up on Allmoxy, obviously, but it's not about that. It's about using a technology, whatever that technology is,
Mm.
and then forward and take that momentum and be a better human, be a better person, and move humanity forward. That's what it's really about.
Well, what I love about this is is two things. I mean, number one, unlike a lot of technology companies, which, is another pet peeve. I've got a lot of pet peeves about technology companies, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I'm glad so far you're none of them. Otherwise, this would have become a real viral podcast. Um, but, you've been there. You created this to solve a problem that you had, and a lot of the industry, quite frankly, has. You weren't this guy, in Northern California sitting there going, oh, I could totally exploit this industry. I bet they need this.
No, I'm
But
a
they
shop.
create it without any context of the real world on the ground problems that our clients and our audience in the industry actually deals with. Like, you grew up in the industry, and you didn't want to be covered in sawdust your whole life. So you put yourself out of that job, which is a fantastic, passionate drive. But the other thing that I love, kind of takes me back to some advice that I got pretty early in my career, because I kind of I feel like I know your dad, even though I've never met him, because I'm that guy,
He
right? Like,
he is the perfect, like, stereotypical woodworker owner business. I mean,
but I love that, right?
yeah,
Because
me too.
that's the heartbeat of this country. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it
why
is.
this country was founded and why it's so great today, is
Yep.
because of guys like your dad that
Amen.
just every day, woke up before the sun, was so anxious about the success of their business that they threw up and still put on their game face and rolled up their sleeves and worked until dark and came home dirty and exhausted every day and did the whole thing over and over and over again. And I can totally relate to that. For some reason, I'm not as smart as you, of just going, there's probably a smarter way to do this. But I was given advice early in my career, that said, what you should do is every year you should calculate what your hourly wage is. Look at what you made last year and break it down to what your hourly wage is. And then every minute of the day, ask yourself, is what I'm doing as a task worthy of this hourly wage?
Mm.
Right. And as you move up, especially, ask yourself, is what I'm doing right? Because I have a propensity to be like your dad, right? To be back there covered with sawdust, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, be just deadbeat exhausted, and come home and feel like I earned my stripes because I paid it in sweat.
Yeah.
But if you really break it down, as owner of the company, should he have been covered in sawdust? Well, yeah, during that time and that era, probably.
Yeah.
And but today there's alternatives, right? And is that worthy of that hourly wage, or could I shuffle that off to, can I delegate it, or can I find a technology solution that does it better, faster, more accurately, more cost effectively, that frees me up to, instead, I don't know, maybe going a little bit later and have breakfast with my kids every day before they go to school,
Yeah.
and rather than throwing up in the toilet and going in at 4 a.m., right? And
Yeah.
how
And I mean,
valuable is that over a lifetime?
and it takes, and that's not to say that you don't need to go through those periods, because those periods are the periods that shape us.
Right.
Had my dad not thrown up every morning before work, I don't know, I might be working at a gas station or something. Like,
Yeah. Amen.
and so those things are the things that shape us, and we should celebrate those, I think.
I
But
totally
when given an
agree.
opportunity, I think it's important that we look at it and say, yeah, and not only my wage, is my wage worthy of what I'm doing, but also I'll one up you, is it, how do I describe that human capital.
Mm,
Okay, yes, this is worthy of X amount of dollars an hour, but what's more important than money is, could I, with this time, if I can offload this, can I go in there and interview this employee that I know is struggling and change his life? You know, can
right.
I, like you said, have breakfast with my kids and change their lives?
Right.
And I think that's when things get exponentially more valuable, is when you can get into the realm of human capital rather than just dollars, right? And you can start
Right.
to like make a difference with humans. And,
Yeah.
and that's hard to get there, right? It's hard to find enough things like that. But once you do, then you really start to see returns, even
Yeah.
selfishly, right?
This episode is sponsored by Uniboard. Uniboard, the North American leader in the design and manufacture of particle board, MDF, and decorative composite wood panels. Uniboard is renowned for having one of the most extensive product portfolios of engineered wood products in North America, ranging from deep embossed and synchronized TFL textures to ultralight MDF. Uniboard's products are sold to retailers, distributors, and finished goods manufacturers, which cater to the kitchen cabinet, furniture, office, home renovation, and construction industries. Uniboard, redefining wood.
So what are your clients saying? Like, roughly how many clients have you helped now? And because that's really what you're in the business of doing, right? Is problem solving,
Yeah,
and giving people back, parts of their business and life that were consumed probably with things that they really didn't enjoy doing all that much, right?
right,
So
right.
so you took the dirty stuff and punched in a bunch of code stuff that I don't understand, and now magically a computer does it.
Yeah,
So
and convince them to, pay us and trade money for time, right? Yeah, and so that's really where I mean, that's what gets me going in the morning, is I get an email from a customer saying, hey, I just bought a boat because of Allmoxy, or I finally bought that property in Vermont, and here's my cabin, and now I get to work from there because of Allmoxy. And
Right.
now me and my son, or the guy that his mother-in-law got cancer, and they were able to drop everything and take care of her, and work
But
from
still
home.
run the business.
Yeah. So those are the things that get me going. And again, this isn't an Allmoxy sales pitch. I mean, these technologies are found all over the place,
Yeah.
And, Allmoxy might be right for somebody, might not, but look for, the listeners, look for those opportunities to seize the technology and to, gain an efficiency, and then use that efficiency gain, not just for money, but for things that really matter,
Trying to improve your life. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I mean, it's this conversation's taken an interesting turn that I love, but this whole COVID thing, that we've been dealing with as a planet, that's gone on, I'm sure, far longer than anybody expected, and continues to be a challenge. Man, it's, I mean, we're considered an essential business, and, we're not a massive team. I mean, but we're pretty good size and we're spread out a little bit. But, I had invested in technology solutions a ways back, more as a contingency plan for myself, right? So if I got hit by a bus, if, the team, whatever, half the team decided to quit, whatever, like, do I have the ability to keep the business going? So, we invested in all these technology solutions, and I can tell you, um, it's gracious of you to say, Allmoxy isn't the one and only, and there's a lot of solutions out there. But the one thing I found through that process was, I will separate tech companies into two buckets. That one are the group that has all the answers, right? Their marketing, their presentation, their demos, that, they've got all the answers. You couldn't possibly come up with something where they don't already have an answer to it.
Yeah.
And then the other is a group of humans.
Yeah.
And they're the guys that, much like this conversation, just go, I don't know, like, our stuff's pretty good. Our clients are pretty happy, but you know what? Every business is different. But I can tell you, our team is full of a bunch of super passionate, super smart dudes that just really get off on solving problems. So I promise you're going to have a problem we haven't thought of before, but I can give you my word, we'll solve it.
Yeah.
And we'll just figure it out. And I'll tell you what, every time I went with those guys, they never let me down. And so even in this tech world where, I think the impression is we're turning over portions of our business to faith in computing, the reality is we're not. It's no different. It's still, we're putting our faith in other human beings, and are those people that you feel like you can trust and that you can count on, and that those are the people that are going to answer the phone, or are they going to be on hiatus in Nepal backpacking and you can't get a
You're
hold of
hitting
them?
on something huge, and it's that the code is just a manifestation of a bunch of people's way of thinking, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, Allmoxy as a software is just a piece of how we think to do and how we solve certain, A, B, and C problems. But the
Yeah.
reality is that it's humans behind it. And it's funny you say that, because just last night there were 5 or 6 of us, of our team, at dinner with a client. And I mean, even with our client at dinner, we're sitting there arguing in front of our client with each other about issues in the code and how to solve things. And I look over and I'm like, you probably didn't expect to be involved in such a vulnerable conversation, but I'm like, you're one of the family,
Yeah.
you're a big client and you're one of us. I mean, you're at the
No,
table with us,
no, we're the exact same way. And I'll tell you, it's I think, the thing that you've hit on that I hope, the audience walks away with, right? That, this isn't an all Moxie infomercial, and it's not intended to be, and or anything. And it's not even a technology infomercial saying, hey, you should run right out and explore ways to automate your business. You know, I can tell you, I am a super type A control freak, like to the point of almost being OCD about certain things. And much like your dad, like, I just feel like if I don't have my hands on this portion of the process, something's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And so we had kids late in life. Like I said, I've got a 3-year-old and a 9-year-old, which is a whole nother chapter of a dozen podcasts, I would guess. But COVID, when we as a company took 8 weeks off. Well, not off, but we went virtual.
Yeah.
I just called an audible on a Friday, not because we had to or because anybody was sick, but it was just like, you know what, like let's test drive all this technology and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And it was during a time where, of the year and with COVID and everything. So I called an audible, said, hey, this was on a Thursday. Friday morning, you guys are come in 8 o'clock, and by 9:30, you're all back at home working. And everybody's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And by 10 o'clock, we had a virtual conference call company wide, and we were up running. So for the next 8 weeks, we're 100% virtual. And I can tell you, I was blown away. Number one, we have never been so productive and so efficient and connected. Actually, we communicate more when we were remote than we do when we're just in the same office, right?
Yeah.
And so that was surprising. The other surprising thing, unfortunately, was I put it out to a very public vote of who wants to come back to the office, and even like over half our team is what I'd call millennials,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody voted to come back. So
Oh,
that's
really?
yeah, and it blew me away. But that's a whole aside, a whole separate conversation. But the
Yeah.
thing that I learned the most, which blew me away. And remember, super type A, super competitive. I wake up every morning naturally at 4 a.m. Like I can't sleep in. I'm just that guy, right? But what I've never been so at peace and just calm. And I was truly, for that 8-week period, the best father and the best husband and the best individual. I didn't even know I was capable of these things. I was so passionate, patient, and just at peace, and it was amazing, right? Like,
That's so cool.
and yeah, and I think it was because I was only dealing with the things that I had to deal with, right? And that was and then I had all this other time to think about the business as a whole,
Yeah.
not what was on fire on my desk at a moment or
Yeah.
which employee was coming in with a problem at the given time. Because everybody, I think, was more deliberate with what they brought in
Yeah.
the virtual world versus how easy is it to just walk next door and go, hey boss, what do you think about this? And
You're lost in the minutia, and you're just when you're working from home, and you're literally locked down, and you're looking around and you're saying, what is this all for?
yeah,
This business is for this family.
yeah,
It is
but
to take care.
it's yeah, like we I think men do this, even well, women do it too in a different way, but it's almost like this martyrdom complex
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
what, like if I die from working myself to death in the back covered in
That's
sawdust, like
honorable.
that's an honorable death,
Yeah,
right? Like, and meanwhile, even if it happened 25 years early and I leave my children fatherless, still, like, they have the example that daddy worked himself to death. And I
yeah,
think that's just somehow ingrained in
yeah,
men. And it's hard for us to accept that our family actually wants us around.
yeah,
And so, what I'm happy this podcast turned out to be is my message, which I think is your message, because they can use Allmoxy to do that, is, you know, go out and buy parts of your life back. And there isn't a cost there, because things like Allmoxy, as well as the technology platforms that we now use to run our company, they've made us better, they've made us faster, they've made us more profitable, they've made us smarter. They've given us the time to think about, hey, what next? How can we grow our business in a new way? How can we stay ahead of trends and demands and challenges?
And
But
then importantly, be deliberate about where you reallocate those efficiencies.
yes,
Because it's easy just to put it toward the bottom line. I mean, you could fire employees now that you don't need them, all that kind of thing, and just go to the bottom line. But, you know, think about, the themes of this conversation. I think there are more powerful ways to reallocate that human
yeah.
capital.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I love it. Um, so listen, Brady, I had a blast talking to you. We wrap up every podcast with asking everybody the same two questions. So first question is, what is your favorite thing about what's kept you in this industry? This sawdust industry that as a kid you hated, that felt like torture. You're still in it. So what is it you love most about this industry?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's so much room for growth. There's so much room for impact. I look around and see that I can make a difference here, and so I want to. That keeps me here. I early on, especially after our first trade show, we went to our first trade show, and everyone that came in the booth said, why are you doing this for woodworking? Like, you could make a lot more money in
A
this
bigger
industry."
industry. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest, we listened to him, and for a couple years after that, we chased a lot of different things.
Mm,
We do still have some legacy customers that are from different industries. But when it comes down to it, I mean, this is where we started, and there's so much growth here. There's so much impact,
right.
and we feel a part of, as weird as it sounds, kind of cliche or whatever, but there's a family here. I mean, you go to IWF, you see everyone, you know everyone, and there's kind of this family going on, and we feel part of it. We want to
Yeah.
continue to be part of it.
I love it. So the second thing is so the whole world is going to listen to this, of course, right? Millions of people, I'm sure. And but certainly the whole industry, and we're blessed to have a lot of publications that have been kind of referred to as the industry Bible, and Surface and Panel certainly is one of those. And so so as everybody's listening, and this is an interesting time, and it seems like there we're on a running list of interesting times, and I'm sure when this chapter ends, there's going to be another interesting chapter that follows it. So
But how
kind of,
can top 2020? I mean,
yeah, right. Let's hope. Let's hope. Let's
let's
hope
hope.
that
Fingers crossed.
let's hope the dust settles for a little while after this
Yeah.
one. But um, that's the beautiful thing also about digital, is these things last forever. And so in the context of these times, kind of a time capsule, what is your message to the industry right now from the heart?
Have hope. I mean, we live in a time that's better than it's easy to turn on the news. It's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to look around and see all the political uprisings and feel disconnected from each other, right? There's so many voices telling us that we should separate ourselves politically, racially, class wise, and that's just not the case. We're living in an amazing time of life where amazing technologies exist. I mean, things have never been so prosperous, despite how they or how hard it may seem out there. Just have hope and look around and you know take note of and have gratitude for those things that we do have. There's a lot of opportunity out there. Anytime that there's uncertainty, there's opportunity. So go find that and have hope.
Man, what an exceptional message. Brady Lewis, founder of Allmoxy. I can't begin to tell you how much I've enjoyed the time with you.
Been fun, Patrick.
All right, we will talk again. Thank you for joining us.